In other news now emerging today that the Trade, Industry and Competition Minister, Ephraim Patel, has written a letter to the US government asking if it's possible for them to institute an early extension to our qualification for the African Growth and Opportunity Act, Agoa. Patel says this would help to give investors certainty, and it would be better to renew Agoa as it is now rather than have a new version which would take a long time to negotiate and finalize. As you know, several senior US lawmakers have said maybe we should not qualify to be part of Agoa in the future because they believe that our government is supporting Russia in its conflict with Ukraine. Our government says we're non-aligned. Christo van der Rheede is Executive Director of Agri-SA, representing farmers in all of this. Christo, good afternoon to you. We don't know what the US is going to do. There have been some suggestions they may not allow us to stay in Agoa at all. Is it a bit, I don't know, what's the word? Is the right word cheeky to ask for an extension early in that context?
Well, if you look at our export figures to the United States, just for 2022, it amounted to approximately $10.9 billion, of which agri products totals approximately $560 million. So we talk about a very favorable export regime, and we are the beneficiaries. So it's one thing to ask for the early extension, but a bigger question for me is what will your utilization strategy be all about? Because we need to make the most of this. At the same time, we need to deal with the risk that the United States legislators have put on the table, because we cannot continue to be seen as non-aligned, but at the same time, we do things that at the end of the day speaks to the opposite of that.
One of the key points that Patel makes, as I understand it, is that it would be better to just renew the current version rather than have a long period of uncertainty and negotiation over a new version. Does the current version work for you as farmers, as the agricultural industry, or do we need some changes? Would you prefer some changes to Agoa?
At this point in time, it works. If you take, for example, the citrus industry, the wine industry, I think citrus, they export in the region of 1.7 billion rands worth of citrus to the United States. The same with wine, almost R1 billion. Macadamia nuts, as well as table grapes. All of these, all of our farmers that produce those products are beneficiaries. At the same time, obviously, we have a challenge with chicken or poultry imports from the United States, but that's the trade-off. And I think that's where we will have to go and craft a better deal, because one thing that you don't want is for dumping to take place on South African soil. So we need to have a fairer trade agreement, especially when it comes to poultry. But the important thing is we cannot afford to lose Agoa, because it's not only agriculture that benefits. Our automotive industry benefits, and many other industries benefits. But we can make so much more if we have a proper utilization strategy in place.
In other words, we could get a lot more benefit out of Agoa, out of these very favorable terms, than we do now.
Yes, indeed. I think just in terms of trade benefits or tariff benefits, we have scored a benefit of almost to the tune of almost 3 billion rand. Because there are no tariffs on many of these products that we export to United States. But also, remember, the United States have massive investment in South Africa. We talk about 600 United States companies that are operating in South Africa that provide many jobs. And in addition to that, we need foreign investment. We cannot turn our back on the West. And we have to have a very good and balanced relationship with both the West and the East, because we need to put South Africa first. We cannot put the ideological position of the ANC first. It must be about South Africa.
You made the point that these are favorable trade terms. I mean, it's really a gift. It's a deliberate strategy by the US to try and help countries on our continent develop. That's the aim, to develop industry. And that also means that they have this clause in the sort of treaty or whatever it is, that, a country cannot act counter to the interests of the United States. It's a gift. They can take it away. Do we really have much to negotiate with? You talk about American investment here, But in the end, it's the United States economy that really makes it so powerful.
I think we are in a very, very fragile position in that we are not in a position to dictate to the United States because they put this benefit on the table, and it's our job to make the most of that benefit, given the fact that we have this massive unemployment rate in South Africa, ever-increasing poverty levels and ever-increasing social challenges. So here's an opportunity, and yes, we've made the most of it, but we should expand these opportunities and grow foreign investment in South Africa, especially from a country such as the United States. But that applies to China as well, because we've seen massive growth in terms of agricultural exports to Asian countries, especially China, to our Arab countries. And this is where South Africa gains a lot of benefit because we earn a lot of foreign exchange. We also have a situation where we obviously align our standards and especially the quality of our products to international standards, and all of these things at the end of the day benefit South Africa to a very large extent. If you look at what Kenya has done, Lesotho has done, and some of our African counterparts, they have really went out of their way to apply their minds, also to compile a utilization strategy. And today, Kenya as well as Lesotho, almost 90% of their products are going towards the United States, and they get the benefit from that. And that's the kind of, we have to ensure that we gain in terms of economic outcomes as opposed to political rhetoric that will really not be of any benefit towards South Africa and its people.
There's a lot going on in your field, in the agricultural field, if I may say at the moment, Christo. I mean, we have the end of the Black Sea grain deal, which is likely to put up food prices. These are products that you produce and sell, so those prices could go up. At the same time, the atmosphere, as I'm sure you know, is brewing another El Nino, or that's the forecast. Is it going to be a very interesting couple of months, and maybe in a 6-month period, maybe a year period in your game?
South Africa's geopolitical position is of critical importance. As I've said earlier, if we say we're non-aligned, then, and if we're neutral, there's nothing wrong with it. But you cannot say you're neutral one moment and the next moment you're in bed with a foreign power that at this point in time is seen as the aggressor. What is even more important for me is that we need to keep our eye on the future. We've got a growing population in 2035. The estimates are that we will have 80 million people in South Africa. People need to be fed, and we've done quite well. You know, the past few years we've seen huge increases in yields. We've got a bumper maize crop, we've got a bumper soya crop. Our farmers have adapted. When the war broke out, remember we imported approximately 30% of our wheat from the Ukraine and Russia. Our farmers responded, and they delivered in the region of 50,000 additional tons of wheat. So yes, current estimates are that we will sit with approximately 2.3, 2.5 million tons. So it's not really sufficient for South Africa, but we have started to import from other countries such as Poland, Australia, Mexico. So we're really, in a good position. We are much better off than many other countries. But we score a lot of own goals. For example, load shedding. For example, these allegations that we've sold weapons to the Russians. We are doing things that are not really ensuring that we have food security into the future. And that's why we need to get our act together, make sure that we have a balanced trade relation with the US, China, and many other countries in the world, because it's about South Africa and South Africa's interest, not Russian interest or Chinese interest or US interest. It's about South Africa's interest, and those interests that we need to nurture and protect so that our people can benefit at the end of the day.
Christo van der Rheede, thank you, Executive Director at Agri SA. Do appreciate the time.